Hi, this is Miss Jess at the Staker South Chicago Heights Library. Thank you for joining us for the November STEAM at Home activity. Today we're going to be talking about making paint, especially how people made paint a really long time ago before we had all the cool paint technology we have now. So thank you for joining us, and wherever you're watching this video, there's going to be a comment or a description somewhere that's got a link where you can see the other monthly programs that other libraries are doing and find out how to sign up and watch those too. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have fun.
Thinking about colors can be a little weird. We know there's a big difference between what we see in nature and what we see in art and things created by people. Sometimes you can find crayons, colored pencils, paint, and that sort of thing that matches the vibrant colors in nature. Maybe you've explored before what makes colors in real life. Crayola says that to see color, you have to have light. And when light shines on an object, some colors bounce off the object and others are absorbed by it. So our eyes only see the colors that bounce off or are reflected. And you know this is true because you can't really tell the colors of things in a dark room. Everything is kind of just different shades of gray. Anyway, there are lots of really cool experiments you can do with color at home using simple things like mirrors and lamps, and you and your grown-up should Google it someday if you're looking for something to do. But today we're not going to look at lights and prisms and rainbows and that sort of thing. We're going to look at how people, for thousands of years, have learned how to make their own paint so that they can create their own colorful masterpieces, just like in nature. So, what are we doing today? First, let's get our space ready. Let's make sure your station is set up in case things get a little messy. Take a minute now to pause and make sure you have a surface that you don't mind getting a little messy. The supplies we're working with shouldn't stain clothes or anything, but it's best to maybe put on a smock or use a surface that you don't mind getting dirty, just in case. Today we're going to talk about the two basic ingredients of paint, and like people used a long time ago. And then we're going to experiment with making your own. So one more quick check. Are you in a place that can get a little messy? So first off, let's look at what people used to paint a really, really long time ago. This is a cave painting in France. And while it's hard to tell just how old these things are, some historians think it's probably about 17,000 years old. Here's another cave in Argentina. And this one they think is maybe between 9,000 and 13,000 years old. Let's look at one more. This one is in Libya, and it's probably about 7,000 years old. So let's do a quick look at these three again. Take a good look at this one. And this one. And back to this one. What colors do you see in all of them? See a lot of browns and reds and kind of oranges, black. What colors do you not see? They were limited in what colors they could use because these people couldn't just drive to Target and buy some paint that had been created in a factory somewhere. So how would you make paint if there weren't any paint factories out there making it for you? The basic recipe for paint is a pigment and a binder. Now, these may be new words for you, so we'll talk about what they are. Pigment is the actual color part of the paint, and it comes from a lot of different places. If you see on the right side of the screen, those are like color pigments. And the picture on the left is what it comes from. So we have some that are made from plant parts, some that are made from old bones, and some from minerals, like you see in like pretty rocks and gems at like, rock and gem shows, that sort of thing. Now, pigment is what gives the paint its actual color. It's something from nature ground up into a tiny, tiny powder. Nowadays, pigment is usually made in laboratories using chemical reactions, and sometimes it can be pretty dangerous. However, long ago, before we started using that kind of technology, pigments were made from things we find in nature, and some still are. Some of them were a little gross, too. Some things like animal pee, dirt, ground up bug parts. They had to make it using things that they had on hand. It was hard to travel long distances back then, so they had to use what they had around them and get creative. They weren't always able to make the colors that we have now. For example, think about all the natural things in the area where we live. Plants, dirt, rocks, bugs. And try and think of anything that's purple or bright blue or hot pink. Can you think of anything? There's not a lot that I can think of. So, if I was trying to make a cave painting, I'd probably have to use a lot of shades of browns and reds like they did in the pictures we looked at a while ago. The other part? The binder. Binder holds the pigment and makes it stick to the surface that you are painting. And it can come from a lot of different places. In the past, they've used things like spit, honey, egg whites, plant oils, water, and animal fat. You can also use fillers like types of white clay or flour to stretch out your paint if you want to use a more liquidy pigment. Like maybe juice, that sort of thing. Or animal pee, which I would really recommend against. So, let's do it. In your kits, if you picked one up, you should have a few little cups, a little bit of spices. You should also have a little bit of a filler, which is a natural kind of white clay. It's safe, so don't worry about anything I gave you. Now, let's go back to pigment plus binder. So, our pigment color, so think about things that you could use that are colorful. I gave you guys some eyeshadow if you got the kit. Maybe try mixing some eyeshadow with a binder. One of these things. Or maybe if you have a little bit of bright juice, like some grape juice or fruit juice or something, you can mix it with a little bit of that white clay with a little bit of a binder. See what you get. If you can ask your grown-up what kind of plant oils you have in your house. Maybe you have olive oil or vegetable oil or coconut oil. There's a lot of different oils people like to cook with. Any of those can be handy. Maybe they can help you crack an egg to get the egg white out. And you can always just spit in your cup too. So get creative with what you have around you. Remember to ask your grown-up before you start using anything in the kitchen, because who knows if they've got that saved for something important. And I'm going to show you a couple pictures of paints that I have made with things in my house. On the left here, I mixed a little bit of red eyeshadow with a little bit of egg white. And on the right, I mixed a little bit of olive oil with a little bit of turmeric. So let's make a list of what binders you're going to be using and what pigments you're going to be using. Now this is going to be a little different for each person depending on what you have at your house today. But here's just a few things I had at my house. Then the next step, list your results of what happens when you mix the different things. What color did you get? Was it a good paint, or maybe it was too runny, or maybe it was too powdery? Maybe it was too thick. So list your results. You can also list additional data, what you could have done to make it a little better. So feel free to experiment. Let us know what worked out and give you the best paint and what didn't give you good paint at all. And one thing to bear in mind is that depending on what kind of binder you use, it's going to dry quicker or slower. So some vegetable oils dry very slowly, but if you used maybe water or egg whites or your own saliva, those tend to dry a little more quicker. So bear in mind your artwork is going to be pretty wet for a while. So would you like to share something spectacular that you made? Did you make the perfect paint? Or maybe you would just like to show off what you had made with your paint. Go ahead and send it to me by email, and we would like to share it on our Facebook page and on our website so other people can see what you've made. Thanks again for coming to our virtual STEAM at Home program today. I hope you enjoyed yourself and maybe learned something. And don't forget to check out the other monthly programs put on by other area libraries for the rest of the school year. Thanks again, all.